Hi and welcome to Dad's Channel. Thanks for popping by. It's great to see you. Please remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you're new, welcome, and I hope to earn your subscription today. What we're going to talk about today is a guy called Richard Vobes, who seems to have become quite popular for his opinions, with which a lot of people seem to agree. And we're going to take a look at one of his videos about coal-fired power stations and why I don't actually agree with what he said about them. It's not that I completely disagree. We'll find out as we take a look. So I guess we better take a look. Coal-fired power stations. Sure, I can agree that the government have actually been very short-sighted over the past however many years it is actually. We're living in a time we are crossing over, transitioning from one energy, well not just one energy, a group of energies to a different group of energies, from old tech to what was slightly newer tech to completely different tech, green energy.
So here we are, where gas is overpriced, electricity is overpriced, we're not self-sufficient, we're unable to stand up on our own, thanks to ridiculous decisions having been made over the last 20 years, all for this so-called green agenda, green planet.
Now, at the moment, green energy, as pointed out just there by Richard, it just isn't doing the job at the moment. You can't get 100% at the present time, 100% green energy to supply the nation.
I gather that the government has asked the national grid to warm up, I think the terminology was, 2 coal-fuelled power stations in Yorkshire that are operated by Drax.
As he said, we're having to fire up an old coal-powered fire station. Actually, 2 old coal-powered fire stations. Coal-fired power stations. Always get that round the wrong way. So we do need to use the old, or what can be referred to as the old technology, coal-fired power stations. Yes, we do. We've kind of painted ourselves into a corner with this one, haven't we? But he talks about using old technology such as coal until such time that we have something better, until obviously green energy is producing in a much more efficient and better way.
That if we're transitioning to a green agenda, which will take far longer than everybody is purporting that it will take, clearly it's going to take longer, we need to still be burning the fuel that is reliable. We only put out 1% of the world's pollution here in the UK. And if we, as I mentioned, I think in a previous video, if during the winter we were allowing people more to burn coal and use gas without seeming to penalise them and make them feel like they're polluting the planet, we're still not going to make much difference.
But we already have something better. We've had it for some number of years, since the Second World War, and that's nuclear. Love it or loathe it, it's not as polluting as oil or gas or indeed coal, and we would save shoving huge amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. I can't agree with him that as we only apparently produce a small amount of the world's pollution, sure, it's fine. Let's fire up those power stations. It doesn't matter. I don't think this is particularly the right attitude to be having. It seems to me this is a simple acceptance, and from my perspective, it's just the blind leading the blind without asking the obvious questions about nuclear. Another thing I find myself not agreeing with Richard on this occasion, and I do agree with a lot of what he does actually say in the video, but something I don't agree with again is log burners. He seems to be just accepting that people have gone completely nuts out and run out and bought log burners, and they are far more polluting than the traffic on the road. And you might want to start thinking about a particle called PM 2.5. Now this is produced by log burning, and it's absorbed by you in great quantities because you're near the fire. The question that should have been asked, in my mind, and still should be asked, is why the hell haven't we been building nuclear power stations for the past 50 years? Maybe one every 10 years. Instead, let's just stoke up the fire. Let's throw the coal on and let's get burning away and ruining the environment a little bit more. Now would be a good time to have a better plan, in my opinion, instead of government continually cuddling up to those pathetic sympathy groups, all of whom have members who want to go home, turn on the light and turn on the heat. Maybe they should just go to wherever they think this fairyland is that's just easy to run and easy to heat and easy to turn the light on, and have a good look around, because it isn't. And I think they're just living in clear cuckoo land, really. But obviously the thing we need to do is get past a few of the niggles. Oh, it might blow up. Well, this isn't Japan and we don't live on a fault line. We've had nuclear power stations for a good number of years and none of those have suffered any issue. Well, somebody might want to blow one up. Well, again, we've had nuclear power stations for many years, and as far as I'm aware, nobody has tried to blow one up. So we really need to kind of grow up and move on with this. Whether we like it or not, we've failed. And in particular, our government, and probably many governments around the world, have actually failed. All these ridiculous COP meetings that seem to have achieved so little over the past 30 years or so, since Rio to the latest one in Egypt, COP27, just seems to be getting us really nowhere. It's hard enough to organise people in your local village hall, let alone try to organise a whole planet to move in the same direction. In my last video, I said at the end that we're simply not achieving enough. We're not moving forwards fast enough, and we're failing to keep to any particular commitments that we made at all these COP meetings over the years. We seem to be returning to dinosaur technology. Richard Vobes was saying that this is the technology that we have to return to when we do have nuclear, and it is a much more advanced technology than coal. Oh yeah, what about the waste? We just dig a hole and throw it in, won't we? Well, actually, no. Let's talk about more modern technology. Yes, moving on from nuclear to a different type of nuclear. We can actually reuse that waste because it still contains about 90% of the energy even after 5 years. There's a type of reactor called a neutron reactor, which can actually take the waste and create a lot more energy from that so-called nuclear waste. And it isn't just, when we think of nuclear waste, we think of these big green barrels, big barrels of green liquid flowing around all over the place, and actually it's a solid when it goes into the reactor and it's a solid when it comes out of the reactor. So where does this leave us? There is a dilemma, and as Richard says, it's a transitory period from one type of technology to another. Now I'm sure people are going to take aim at me straight away for saying, right, Joe, just go over to nuclear. Now yes, even I know it's not that simple. If we started building nuclear power stations today, they wouldn't be online for, say, 5 years, perhaps even longer. But that's just what we're going to have to put up with for now, in the short term. Consecutive governments have continually let down the people, being swayed by anti-nuclear and the supposed idea that having this cross-section of production of energy from green to nuclear to coal to gas is something that we should be desiring. Well, I don't think it's been right. I think we've been let down. The government have failed the people continually. Personally, I think it would be a good idea to start right now building nuclear power stations with a plan to turn off the coal permanently, to turn off the gas permanently, to turn off the oil permanently, and actually move forwards with a much more cleaner energy, even if it's nuclear, even if we're not particularly 100% happy. But I don't really see, and I can't agree with Richard saying that until green is 100% there, and I think that's still a long way off. I agree with Richard. I think that's some considerable time away, that we should rely on coal, and we shouldn't. We should have a plan to use the coal, but replace the coal with nuclear power stations, and then replace those with the green energy when it finally gets to 100% efficiency, which it will do. I have faith in science and technology, and yes, I'm sure we can get to that stage. But until then, we actually really need to be sensible. And even more so if we're going to save the environment at the same time. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that interesting. Please comment, and hopefully you'll like the video as well. Remember to subscribe and I will see you on the next video.